Microsoft Sway is a new app from Microsoft Office that makes it easy to create and share interactive reports, personal stories, presentations, and more. To get started, you can add your own text and pictures, search for and import relevant content from other sources, and then watch Sway do the rest. In this brief tutorial, we'll get started with some of the basics of Microsoft Sway. So from your Microsoft dashboard with all your applications open, you go ahead and open up Sway, and you're going to start with New Blank Sway. So when you open up New Blank Sway, you'll see some features like Storyline. This is where you're basically going to be building your Sway. There's a design feature to kind of preview what it looks like, and we'll get into some of these other features over here. So let's say I were doing a Sway for Steve Jobs. Automatically, Sway recognizes the title of my Sway project, and there is no need to save any work as this is always a live link. If I highlight Steve Jobs, I can emphasize, make it bold. I can italicize it by making accent. I could even do a hyperlink for, let's say, a Wikipedia page and link it right to Steve Jobs. Over here on background, if I click background, you'll see it has a built-in intelligence that notices the title of my Sway is Steve Jobs. So the first suggested search is Steve Jobs. So there's no need to go into Google searches or search anywhere outside of this. So here's like this iconic photo, and I could just drag that over and drop it, or I can select it and hit add. Over here, I could just X out of the search window. Anytime you bring in pictures, there's this option over here called focus points, and it says select what is important in your image so Sway can position it. So if I go ahead and select focus points, you'll see a preview of Steve Jobs here. And if I select areas on his photo, if I just wanted to focus on his face, do like this here, it kind of previews down here what the image is going to look like. Or, and this is useful because if you have a picture with a lot of stuff on it, you can just focus on areas that you want to show in your Sway. Or if you want the whole photo to be emphasized, you just check off the entire image is important. So the concept behind Sway is you're building things called content cards. And to insert a new card, you have this little plus sign here. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And there's all different types of cards to select. So if you want to build a stack of cards that builds on concepts, if you go ahead and choose heading 1, this is where you're going to build your first card. And you can see over here it's called section. But if I call this background, you'll notice that the section is now titled background. So think of it like a table of contents where Steve Jobs is my main focus topic chapter of the book, if you will. And these are the subtopics or subchapters within that main unit. Again, if I want to pick a background image and do something different, here's a kind of like a young picture of Steve Jobs. I can add that here. If I realized I wanted to redo or start over, I could always just hit the trash can here to delete this card from my Sway. But now, after doing some research on Steve Jobs, I want to add some information about his background. So if you notice, I go here, there's a little plus sign, insert content. And here, if you do another heading, it's going to see a new section card, a new heading card. I don't want that. I want to add content to the background. So what I'm going to do is hit the plus sign. I'm going to go ahead and choose text. Now you can see on my background card, I've added some bolded information about Steve Jobs' early background. Again, I can highlight everything. I can do an emphasize, accent as a choice. If I don't want bullets, I can just convert it into numbers or go back to bullets. Now over here, there's two choices called emphasis. So for text, you have two choices, subtle, which is what you see here, and then moderate. So when I select moderate, it's just going to enlarge it. But what that looks like in the Sway is if I go into design to get like a preview of what it looks like from the beginning, I scroll down, I can see the text here. But now if I go back into storyline and I change that text to a moderate emphasis, you can see the difference. It kind of makes the text pop a little bit more. So that's an option you have with the text to make it kind of like a subtle emphasis or more moderate. And then you'll see later with pictures, you have three options where the photos could be subtle, moderate, or a choice called intense. If I want to add more content within this card, I'm going to go ahead and hit this plus sign. And now I have other options other than the text. I could do an image, or I could do something called a stack. So to show you what a stack looks like, if I go ahead and select that, and you can see it's still living inside of this gray box. So inside this gray box is all the content that exists within that card. I'm going to go ahead and hit add content, and I could do text, I could do image, or I can even upload some media from my device. But right now I'm just going to go ahead and hit image because I want to make a stack of photographs that show Steve Jobs as a younger man. So now, one thing I should also point out is if you don't like any of the suggested searches, you can do a specific search. Like if I put Steve Jobs young and go ahead and hit search, it yields these pictures of Steve Jobs as a younger man. So to create a stack, all I'm going to do is find the pictures that I want. I could select them individually, or I could drag them one by one. But for this, I'm going to select them individually, and here's his high school picture. Here's a picture with his early days at Apple. So I'm going to take these four pictures. I'm going to go ahead and select add. And you can see what it did. It put them in vertically. And now this is what it would look like when you play your sway. So when I go to this section here, it's almost like a Rolodex of photographs. You could also do these with text cards. So the option before is when I made a stack, one of the options for stack was text. So you could do like interactive flashcards. I'm not going to do that right now, but if I have these four photographs, again, you'll see that in this way, it almost looks like an interactive scrolling through Rolodex of photographs. And you can see, as I pointed out before, with photographs, you have three choices of emphasis: subtle, moderate, and intense. So when I'm in my design mode, the pictures are relatively small. But if I were to change this to intense, now the photographs just pop a little bit more. Another option you can see with photographs, not just for stack or any type of photograph you can put in, you always have the option for a caption. So when you looked at the stack of photographs, they were just pictures. However, if I go back into my storyline, I could put a caption on each of these photos. So now as you can see here, I put a caption on each of these photographs. So now when I'm in my sway, you can see on the top left, and again, it makes it very interactive. I can expand the caption. And as I expand the caption, you can click it and close it. And then once you open it, it sticks there. I'm going to go to my next photograph, Young Visionary, High School Days, Meeting of the Minds, Early Days at Apple. And now when I open up the captions, again, it makes the photographs more interactive for the user. Now as you can see, my first card, everything lives within this gray box. If I can kind of zoom out to show you better what that looks like. Everything inside of card 1, which is called background, lives inside that gray box. Now, if I want to build a second card, I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus sign. That's important to know because it's asking me to insert content still within the stack card. So I have to go to the edge here. There we go. And I'm going to choose a heading. And now, by default, it's called Section 2. Now my second card I'm calling Apple Seeds, just a little play on words. And in my presentation, I'm going to talk about probably the beginnings of the Apple company and Steve Jobs' role in that. So there's my little picture I got from my built-in search. So my next card is called Apple Seeds, and now I want to add some content. So if I'm going to go to the plus sign, insert content. I have all these different choices here. I'm going to go ahead and add text. Then you can see here, I can emphasize that if I want. I have some bulleted information about how the beginning of the Apple company was founded. Now if I wanted to add some, like an image here, because it does say something about the Apple One, I can go in, maybe I luck out, and get a picture of the Apple One, the first computer. Take this, add it, and I can put a caption. So I have a picture of the first Apple computer, and then my caption says the Apple One designed by Steve Wozniak. So now we just kind of went a basic overview of how to build a storyline in your Sway. Now if I go and look at design, this is where you have the options to basically pick and choose different styles. So here, most common sways are played vertically, but you could also do it like horizontal, which is more like a PowerPoint. So now it will scroll from left to right. You could do it as slides. So this is really more like as you navigate through like a PowerPoint slide presentation. So you have a couple of options on how you want to actually display your sway. Here you have a lot of different options for color variations, different backgrounds. Again, this is just user's personal preference, but you can kind of see that Sway takes the coloring of a lot of the photographs and kind of builds your Sway automatically, thematically, based on, here we have this black and white photo of Steve Jobs. The original design had a lot of black and white effects to it. So again, you can kind of go through this and play around with different backgrounds, and I don't really think that fits. But if I go here to this basic simple black and white, kind of go through like this. Another option that's kind of cool is this remix function. If you hit remix, basically Sway takes your content and kind of lays it out. I don't want to say randomly, but it does it with some sort of rhyme or reason. Hit remix again. It does it a little bit differently. So those are all the ways you can kind of play around with different styles of how your sway is going to look. And if I go back into storyline, if I want to add some more content to it, I just go back into there. So I do hope this video was helpful and you have an idea of how to get started with the basic sway. In future videos, we'll get more into how to print, how to share, different ways of how to send them out to a certain sharing app like Remind or an eBoard. If you have any questions, you can always email me. My extension is 8589. The Twitter handle is @isliptechint. Thanks.